Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are doing great because today we are going to see how to use Logic Apps. What is an Azure Logic App? It's an Azure resource that allows you to create and build workflows and automate mundane tasks without coding whatsoever. You can automate tasks like sending emails, receiving HTTP requests, getting files from the SFTP server, or moving data around Blob storage. You select the operation you want and you start building workflows very quickly and very efficiently. Now you will tell me, do we like no-code solutions? No, we don't. Aside from the fact that we like to code, coding offers you this flexibility to tailor your solution to your needs. However, all those mundane tasks like sending emails to clients can be performed using Logic Apps. And to be honest, most integration tools nowadays have these built-in operations. So today we will go through a couple of practical examples of how to use Logic Apps. But enough talking, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. First things first, on the search bar we have to click on Logic Apps. Click here, click Add, select your subscription, your resource group, your Logic App name, say Logic App Example 1, West Europe, UK West, West Europe here. We select the consumption, best for entry level, pay only as much as your workflow runs. Of course, we don't want to get a bill like £1,000. Then next, we don't have to create tasks and review and create. Great. It will take a couple of minutes, so I will be back when it's done. Actually, yeah, I think maybe a minute. Okay, that was fast. We go to resource here and we click on blank Logic App. We have to create a trigger first. Let's say we are going to create an HTTP request, a GET request. So someone from our Python code, we are going to perform a GET request using the requests library and pass a path parameter, and we are going to create this endpoint here to receive this request with the parameter and perform whatever actions we are going to perform later on. So we click on triggers. When a HTTP request is received, we click here. Now the URL will be generated after we click save, and here, as you can see, it's HTTP post URL. It's going to change once we click on the method here and hit the get method, the get option, add new parameter, relative path. The reason is we have to add a parameter, right? So let's say item. And the next step would be to actually perform a response, actually provide a response to the user that is going to hit this endpoint. Requests, response, enter key. Now that could be the usual content type and application JSON. Let's say I have it saved. So, and then the request body could be a JSON that would be like status success, if I can spell it right, and we click save. Now, what is going to happen now? If we hit this endpoint, so expand the first operation, and now when you click save, it's going to give you this endpoint here. Now you see here it from the post request that we had before, now it's a get request because we changed the method here. And if you copy that link and you paste it here, you will see success. Now there is this, the next step is to actually create a control activity, like a switch activity, where we can check the value of the parameter that we passed. If this is the, let's say, whether the value is book, we can return this response. If the value is of the parameter is something else, then do something else. And we can create this case when statement. This is the equivalent case when statement in SQL, or multiple if conditions in Python. And we can do this by clicking here, add action, and we need to search switch. It's going to emerge here. It's going to come up. Where is that? Yep, switch control. We click on that. We choose the value that would be the parameter that we receive on the get request. And here equals, if it's book, then we return a response to the user. Again, here that would be, let's say, a JSON response, because we are going to hit the API using Python. Status, the item is this item. And of course, if we want to define the content type here and the application JSON, we don't need this response right now, so we can delete that. Okay, save that, click the add button here. If the content, let's say, is equal to glass, we perform an action that would be, let's say, to create a blob in our blob storage, right? We click on Azure Blob Storage. We have to create a connection, actually create blob, Azure storage account. I have already created a connection, but let's say we want to create a, let's create a new storage account for the purpose of this example. I already have one, but let's create a new storage account, Azure subscription, resource group, Apostolos test, and that would be West Europe, and performance, standard, redundancy, etc. Advanced, we leave everything as per default. Be careful, do not enable hierarchical namespace, because that would create a data lake instead of blob storage, and we want a blob storage. Public access data, okay, that's fine. We review and create this new blob storage. It will take a couple of minutes, so be patient here. Create. I will be back. Our blob storage has been created, so we hit on go to resource button. We see our new storage account. Let's copy the storage account name and create a new connection to this. I have already, as you can see, I have already created connections to other storage accounts, but let's see that this would be new storage connection. Authentication type, access key, because it's easier, but you can use service principal as well. Azure storage account, the name of the storage account, access key, so you go here under access keys, security and networking, and then underneath there is access keys. Click on the show button, copy the key here that we have and paste it here. So we created a connection between Logic Apps and Azure storage account. So storage, and now here that we have already created a connection, we use this connection and we specify the folder path, and that would be, let's create a container here. Under containers, let's create test container, create test container, so that would be test here. Specify the name of the blob to create blob name. Let's give it the parameter name item.txt, blob content, hello, this is the second case, and here another action to provide a response to the user that is going to hit our endpoint. Let me paste that here into headers. I'm just too lazy to write it down. And for response, let's provide a JSON that would be status. Say this is the second case. The item is, and provide the item name here, quotes, and we click save. So now if we go back here, copy the URL and paste the URL here, and instead of item, provide class, and this returns the status, right? Perfect. Now if we go into blob storage, you see under our containers, under the test container, you will see a txt with the file name as the parameter name that we passed in our get request. You will see under ended, you will see the content of this file. This is the second case, right? This is the content we provided for our txt. Now, let's say if there is another value, because the switch here, you can use it like for multiple case when statements. We create, let's say, you click here, the add button, and the third option would be, actually, no, because we already have the default. So if the previous two cases fail, then we have the last resort. That would be, let's say, to actually send an email to the user that something went wrong, right? This is not the value of the parameter, is not book or glass, it's something else. And how we can do that? We can use Outlook. So if you search for Outlook, you will find this icon will pop up. So you click on Outlook and you click on send email, specify an email address. I will provide an email address for that subject. It will ask you to authenticate. I have already authenticated, but when you use it for the first time, when you use Outlook for the first time, you will need to authenticate Outlook here and create a connection between your Logic app and your Outlook, so that the Logic app has, like can send emails, that it has the right privileges to send emails. So you have to connect to your Outlook. Now the subject would be, let's say, this is a Logic app email. The item is add dynamic content here, and provide the parameter that we passed in our get request. So we will send this email to this subject, to this email here, and then we have to add a response to the user, right? Again, the same content type, application JSON. I will type it out this time, and success, let's say this is case 3, the item is this item, and now we click save. Contain if valid. Okay, we have to define the body test, right? Pretty simple, and we click save. So what is going to happen now? Let me zoom out a bit. We created an HTTP GET request method get, and we provided the relative path, and we pass an item as a parameter. And then we have a switch action, and we say if the value of the parameter equals to book is equal to book, then respond with this HTTP response. If it's equal, if the value of the parameter is equal to glass, then create a new txt file in our blob storage using the connection to the blob that we just to blob storage that we created. We provide the folder path and the blob name that would be the file name of the txt. So if you type .csv, you will get a CSV, and the blob content. This is the blob content that we just, that's a content just for the example. And then in our response, we are returning the status here, which is, this is the second case. The item is the item that we passed as a parameter. And if the value of the parameter is neither book or glass, then the default option, like the else option in the case when statement, like in the equivalent case when statement in SQL, this is the else option, or the else in Python as well. Then we send an email to this user with this subject, and we return a response to the guy to the person who actually hit the API, this endpoint, with this status here, with this body here. Now let's test that, and we will do that by, let me switch to VS Code that I have our request, our GET request, and I will show you what I'm talking about. Here is our GET request, is using the request library. Is pretty simple, right? Just a basic request, GET request. We provide the URL, which is, I have already copied the endpoint here, and in the param I used, let's say, this path param, this variable here. The first one was if it was book, right? So if we hit this endpoint using book as a parameter, we will receive the text that we provided, right? Let's save and run and see what we get back. Status is 200 and the response is status, the item is book. Perfect, because the item is book indeed. The second case is actually if the parameter value is glass. If we save that, we are going to receive our second response. Status, this is the second case, the item is glass. Perfect. And in theory, now on our Azure storage account, we will have, under our blob, we will have a new txt file called glass.txt. And the third case is actually that it's neither glass or book, it's something else. So if we pass a parameter, let's say it's camera, right? We save that, we run the code. This is case 3, the item is camera. And in theory, in our Outlook, in the Logic app, actually used our Outlook as a mail server, and we sent to this user the mail that we specified on Azure Logic app before. Let me switch to Azure so I can show you the results. Here we are back on our container. If we click refresh, you will see the txt file with the content we provided in our Logic app. I removed the previous txt file that we created before, otherwise we would get an error because we would have duplicate txt files. And the last thing to check is to see whether we received an email. I have this email here, and you will see under promotions, we received an email from my Gmail account into another Gmail account. This is the Logic app email. The item is camera. This is the test. Perfect. That's what we wanted. In a nutshell, this is how you can create a workflow using Azure Logic Apps. We created an operation where we receive a GET request with a path parameter. Based on the parameter value, we created a control action which determines the next steps. On the subsequent actions, we created a txt file on our Blob storage, we sent an email, and we also provided an HTTP response. Not too bad for 20-minute work. This is everything for today, guys. I'm not a big fan of no-code solutions myself, but I have to admit I do like Azure Logic Apps. You can build workflows very efficiently and automate tasks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like the video, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.